China controls about 90% of the processing capacity of rare earths. They're used in things like EV engines, magnets, headlamps, sensors, and displays. Industry trade groups are sounding the alarm on shortages after they apparently their availability fell by half in April. They write to the Trump administration that the bottleneck could reduce production volumes or even shut down entire assembly lines. Colin, you write all auto production is at risk here. We also have Gracelyn Baskarin with us. She's director of the Critical Minerals Security Program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. So, Colin, what's your expectation of what happens in the next couple of days and weeks here for U.S. auto lines?
I think the point of our note this morning is when I think auto analysts and my clients hear critical minerals, we always think EVs. And clearly they're very, very important in EVs. And I think names like, Rivian and Tesla are probably more at risk for rare earths. But what I don't think many investors fully realize is that there's trace amounts of these critical minerals in many parts of the car. You're talking about the auxiliary motors that might go into a seat or a window, and that could stop production. And so I think there's wider impacts that could happen. Now, we'll see what happens. I think Trump today was talking positively about the talks and mentioned rare earths with China. And so we'll see if there's progress. But I think this is a lot bigger of an issue than maybe people realize, and it's clearly a pretty major risk over the next month or two. Yeah,
Gracelyn, to quote these auto groups, they said without access to these elements and magnets, suppliers will be unable to produce components including transmissions, throttle bodies, alternators, motors, sensors, seatbelts, speakers, lights, motors, power steering, and cameras, going so far as to suggest that more of that will have to be done in China with the final vehicle brought here. So probably the opposite of what the administration was hoping when it first started going down this path.
Absolutely. I mean, I think a few years ago, we saw rare earths as being kind of an electric vehicle kind of narrative. It was a clean energy narrative. What we know now is that rare earths are such a core part of the manufacturing sector here in the United States. We've already seen it with the Ford Explorer production being paused for a week in Chicago due to these shortages. So certainly we're seeing the knock on particularly strongly in the Midwest where a lot of this manufacturing sits.
Yeah, and Gracelyn, we got a map up, but the reality is that there's one part of the map which is something it's not rare, so it's not on the map, but it's probably the most important thing, and that is cobalt. Cobalt, thankfully, is being phased out of many batteries because cobalt is the furthest thing in the world from any kind of clean energy. It's dug by 10-year-olds in mines in the Congo and ends up in these horrible supply chains where families almost starve to death. So I would eliminate that map because it doesn't show the Congo. Is the U.S. auto industry, and this is becoming people are becoming more aware of this in the supply chain, Gracelyn. So when do we get to we say, okay, there's no emissions for the tailpipe, which is nice, but when do we start to have an honest dialogue about all the things that go into these batteries?
Look, when we think about an EV battery, right, for a car, the conventional gasoline-powered vehicle uses about, 32 kilograms of critical minerals. When we look at the EV, it uses 210 kilograms. It is a six-fold increase in minerals. The one thing we have to remember, though, the defense industry is an absolutely critical off-taker of these materials, but they're small. If we want large-scale investment outside of China, the auto industry is going to be a critical driver of those really big investments. So it may not be cobalt, but all of these vehicles are highly materials intensive.